Welcome to the BusinessSpeak podcast, where we take everything you need to know about being successful in business and make it easy to understand. Whether you're a longtime business owner, newer to this entrepreneur stuff, or hoping to run your own company in the future, you've come to the right place. Featuring your host, professional accountant and business guru, Mr. Chill. So relax and have some fun with us as we journey through BusinessSpeak, the language of business, simplified.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the BusinessSpeak podcast. I am your host, Mr. Chill, also known as Corey. I'm excited to be with you today. Thank you for joining us. I'm also excited to welcome Jessie Schewchuk to our podcast today. Thank you for joining us, Jessie.
Thank you for having me.
Now, a little bit of humor here. This is Jessie's second time being on the podcast. You won't have seen her yet because the first one didn't work so well. Not because of her, it was because of our tech issues. So we're going to second chance to record the podcast, and we thought we can either try to recreate it or we can just have some fun and do something new. So we're going to go for the latter and see what happens.
It's going to be better.
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember, and maybe it doesn't matter what we did last time, but if you like to be introduced or if you like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I can introduce myself.
Okay. I will kind of throw some keywords out just to get like a little teaser for people. Yeah. And then you can fill in all the details and gaps.
Okay.
So I think I got this right. An Emmy award-winning TV producer?
It's the Canadian Emmy, known as the Canadian Screen Award.
Okay.
So the equivalent.
Okay. Yeah. Content creator extraordinaire.
Nailed it.
Yes. And probably has the coolest name for her and the team that works with her at her main company, and you call them Muses.
That's right. My Muses.
So that's kind of a really weird introduction, but why don't you fill in the gaps?
Okay. Yeah, I am a television producer by trade. And I was actually filming videos with my cousins when I was 10 years old with my grandma and grandpa's VHS camcorder that I could barely carry because it was so robust and heavy. But I was making commercials and music videos. I am the second eldest of 11 grandkids, so I got to boss the little ones around. It was awesome. I fell in love with the camera and with video and capturing performance and memories and story. I was 17 in high school when I graduated from high school, and I took an aptitude test. It said broadcast TV. So I went to NAIT in radio and television arts, and I was working in my field when I was 19 years old. Yeah, 19 years young. I was such a baby. I got a practicum at a company called the Idea Factory, which still exists here in Edmonton. And I knocked it out of the park. They hired me. I worked with them for 3 years. I then went over to Dynacor Media Group, and it was a oil and gas corporate video agency. And so I was H2S trained up in Fort McMurray, shooting videos, on the high rigs and such. It was wild and incredible. And then I went over to Access Television. If folks are in Alberta, you'll know that as Channel 9 on the dial that you actually move with your hand, and you'd have to use aluminum foil on the rabbit ears to actually get it to come in clear.
So just a couple years ago.
Yeah, just really aged myself there. And and then after Access, which merged with Chum, I became an entertainment reporter for a couple years. So got to do the really cool gig of interviewing all the big bands, the Tragically Hip, 30 Seconds to Mars, and everything in between, and all of the plays and just culture. And then I jumped ship and I worked for a production company, and we worked on a TV series called Blackstone, which was known in Canada as The Little Show That Could. So this TV show was hugely successful. It was shot here in the Edmonton area, which a lot of people don't know. It was really well known in Vancouver and Toronto. And we were just killing it. It was groundbreaking TV, took place on a fictitious First Nation reserve and talked about a lot of the controversial subject matter that tends to get pushed under the rug. And so it was raw, it was gritty, it was edgy. It ended up on Showcase. We were recommended in like New York Times as a must watch. And we beat out Stargate SG-1 at the Leo Awards in Vancouver. And yes, we were nominated and won multiple Canadian Screen Awards, which is the Emmy of Canada.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
So you've had a fascination and love of video and all things that relate to it for quite some time.
Quite some time.
And the business that you run, or at least one of the main businesses you run, is focused on helping other business owners understand the power and harness that power of video. Is that correct?
That is correct. Nailed it again.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the story behind the name Modern Muse Media and the Muses? Where does that fit in?
Oh, it's a funny story. So also as a little kid, I had an aunt and uncle who had Super Channel. If you had Super Channel, it was a really, really big deal. That's where all the amazing movies are. I grew up on an acreage and we barely had 4 channels, 3 and then 4 with access if you use the aluminum. And so they would record shows for us, movies. And one of the shows that they recorded was Xanadu. It is one of the most terrible movies ever made with Olivia Newton-John. It's won, I think, the most Razzleberry Awards ever, which is the worst categories that you can possibly have. And I just loved it. It's about this muse. It takes place mostly on roller skates. It's a musical. It's wild, crazy. Stars Gene Kelly, actually, so there's a lot of dancing too. But it was all about this woman who inspires or evokes talent or art in others, and specifically in the main character, who's the love interest. So I watched this show over and over and over. And in fact, I've watched it again as an adult and I still have it memorized. Anybody who knew me watched this show with me, even boyfriends throughout my life, they needed to watch this show. This is such a major part of my identity. And when I was coming up with a name to start my business after leaving the TV industry, Muse just definitely had to be a part of it. I knew I was going into media. I didn't want it to be TV or film specifically because I saw the future that it wasn't going to be conventional broadcast channels and such. And, but Muse is kind of the old form of the goddesses, if you will, right? And so I wanted to bring it to modern day. So Modern Muse Media, that's the name of my organization. And anybody that works with the organization is a muse, because we work with businesses and inspire in the art form of video and content creation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Way better intro than I could have done, so thank you.
Way longer too, I think.
Now, one of the things that I think was a bit of a paradigm shift for me when you and I tried recording this last time, so maybe that's how we can save some time here, is I'll just sort of already explain the things that you helped teach me last time. Now, for example, I run an accounting firm, and I don't think typically that accountants or those that work in an office like that are super geared towards doing video. I don't think it's what naturally I think of. I don't think it's what a lot of people think. Oh yeah, accounting firms, you know what they need? They need a lot of video on their social media page. But one of the things you helped me to realize is how, I don't know if easy is quite the right word, but I'll use it for now, how easy or natural it could be to just record things happening in sort of their natural element, almost pretending like the camera's not rolling, and that sometimes that might help you actually capture the best footage ever.
Without question.
And that could apply to any business owner, right? Because I'm imagining people listening to the podcast here be like, okay, well, this is all fine, but what does it have to do with me, right? I'm a one-person show, or my wife and I run a small mom-and-pop shop, whatever. What are we going to ever do with video? And that idea that you put in my head of any kind of business could benefit from the video if they think about it in a kind of a different way. So I'll let you explain that better than I did, but I really appreciated that from last time. So I never would have thought about it that way.
What it has to do with them is that everybody needs video. And I was screaming this from skyscrapers. Everybody needs video, whoa, whoa, whoa. But no one was listening. And so when I started Modern Muse, we were ahead of the time. I was really, really inspired and motivated by a front-runner, a forerunner in this work, Gary Vaynerchuk, who said that every organization or business would have media tools and be creating content from within. But when I started Modern Muse, people were still resisting social media, never mind video. So a lot of the things that I would hear is, yeah, well, we'll just hire that out, which is possible. Or we don't need video. We're not even using social media anyway. And so what is social media going to do for businesses? There was definitely still this old school regime that people were holding on to, the old way, the old guard, right? Then COVID hit, and the reality sunk in with a lot of folks that if they were going to get visible, they had to get video. We were no longer allowed to be in person. And I rappelled down that skyscraper to ground zero, where everyone was trying to figure out what tools to buy, how to use the tools, how to set things up, how to get themselves virtually and online. And that switch was massive for us and our industry, because up until then, it was like pulling rope uphill still. I was convincing people in almost every meeting, right? And I mean, that's nowhere you want to be. I mean, do you need to spend half the time in a discovery call convincing people that they really need an accountant? Like accounting works, right? But that's what we were dealing with. Then COVID hit, and it was just this huge reality that everyone was facing, that if they were going to have exposure, if they were going to set themselves apart, if they were going to be seen and continue to do business, they would need to figure out this video thing. And just that, even just day-to-day business, like video conferencing, not to mention video marketing, right? What it did as well is it made our world that much smaller. So fascinatingly, we don't need to travel and take these big business trips or spend a whole bunch of money or fuel on actually needing to be in person a lot of the time. And there was that realization. But there was also the realization of how you could reach thousands versus one-to-one. And so we were running around scrambling, going from coffee meeting to coffee meeting to coffee meeting. And yes, it's great to, do not get me wrong, I value relationship. And we'll talk about know, like, and trust, which is so important to do through your content. But the power of getting in front of a lens, doing something that we call, which is transcending the lens, which is creating the effect that you are connecting with people just as though you're with them one-to-one, but reaching thousands and thousands versus that one-to-one connection. I mean, it is really, really powerful. And so here we are, and we're post-COVID, and with each year, people are trending to embracing more of creating content from within, documenting their journey, showing who they are as a business, what their corporate culture is all about. And these are the ways that we recommend, or that we work with our clients to transcend the lens, to build that know, like, and trust through the camera, right?
You reminded me of something that I've always found fascinating, but again, I think you'd probably encourage the naturalness of it. Sometimes you'll see something on social media and be like, man, I wish my house was that put together, or I wish my life was that much in order. And you're only seeing like a little picture frame here and not seeing the chaos that surrounds it outside the video frame or the picture frame. And because I think like there's this pressure, well, if I'm going to put something on social media, it's got to look like I've got everything in order. It's got to look like I'm picture perfect. Oh. But I imagine you would actually encourage the opposite of letting the vulnerable show, letting the imperfections be a key part of what you portray. Am I right in that?
Definitely. I still have old paradigms myself that I struggle with. It's funny because I had a team member who has since moved home back to Ontario with her family, but she was with me for 5.5 years. And we would have that argument about, I would need to clean up the scene, and we got to move those books, or we got to set that pillow. And she's like, Jessie, just leave it, the bag sitting there. But I come from a broadcast background. I come from drama, like film and TV, where you would set the stage, right? And so I still actually struggle with that a bit. But what I do encourage more so is about performance, about genuine, authentic performance, because I think, yes, you can have chaos all around you, and how you want that to look is completely up to you. But where people get stuck is about the delivering, and it having to be just so, them having to show up just so. And if they're stammering or stuttering or needing to pause to get a thought, it becomes discouraging, and people will do it less because they're not getting it perfect or it's taking too long. This is something we talk about daily. Something else COVID gave that was an incredible gift was the art of authenticity, and how much we now crave that, and how much more we're going to crave that with AI and everything that's coming in. The word of the year and years, all years to come, is going to be real. Mark my words, real. Because people are going to want to know, is that real? Is that AI generated? Is this a real experience? Is that a real connection? Is that a real human? What am I dealing with? Real. And so the more real we can be, that's what we want. That's what we're looking for. And I don't know that we knew that was what we wanted. But then you had the kids running in, or the cats walking across the screen, or we didn't want it, but the husband streaking naked in the background, or whatever the case may be, right? And we got to know people through COVID as people. And we liked that.
I guess the writing should have been on the wall many years ago, because I'm trying to think, I think Survivor was one of the first real reality shows that people were like craving. It's like unscripted kind of TV, where I know it's a competition, but you're kind of seeing the raw, real side of what happens when people are doing stuff and cameras are rolling 24/7. And I think that was kind of the start of that kind of concept, and that's been around long before COVID. But I think you said COVID kind of really kind of brought the need for that out more. One of the things I've noticed in my own kind of development is when we first started this podcast, I would dread as soon as Braden would say, okay, the camera's rolling, I'd be like, I can talk. I was just jittery. And I think it wasn't until not that long ago when I realized that if I made the video about helping the person who might be watching or viewing, instead of focusing on, well, how did my hair look? Did I have a stupid look on my face? Did I say the right thing? Instead of worrying about me at all and just making and focusing entirely on the person that might be viewing or listening, it takes a lot of the jitters, a lot of the nervousness, a lot of the worry away.
Yeah.
And I don't know that people maybe get that, or maybe everyone does, and I was just really last slow to the party. But that's really been a game changer for me, is if I want to create content and I'm too worried about me, then I get all nervous. But if I can just focus on the good I'm wanting to do for the person on the other side who's going to watch or listen, it kind of takes a lot of stress and pressure off.
I mean, that's the hero's journey right there. So when we talk about this in marketing, and this is very much what we deal with our clients, and what we try and embody, is that when you're not putting yourself in the picture as the hero, then you realize it's actually the people that you're helping are the hero, and you're the mentor. And that's exactly what you're talking about, right? And that's what you talk about in content creation as well, in any kind of marketing, right? You as a company, you are as Chill are the mentor, and all of your clients are the heroes. You're here as a mentor to see them, ride into the sunset, to fulfill their conquest, or their quest rather. And that's exactly what you're talking about. And I think that that's the best way to go about whenever you're putting yourself out there, which is really, really, really hard for people. In general, hearing your own voice, seeing yourself back on camera, this is not something that the majority of the population are comfortable with at all. We deal with this day in and day out. But if you're able to go, okay, what is the purpose of all this? What is the intention? And not make it about you, you're right, then suddenly you're serving. Somebody said something about the core root, I don't want to butcher this, but like the Latin meaning or whatever the word sales is actually to serve.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so really, really interesting. So I hear a lot, why do I need to create content? Why would people want to hear from me? Why would people need to see me? Why do I need to be the face of my brand? Why can't we just use a logo? Why can't we just hire an actor? It goes on and on. And it's because when you talk about the differential, we all serve niches, and those niches are likeness to us, akin to us, if you will. And so, you know, I'm looking actually offset over your shoulder to all of your Lego. And when you walk into your office, you have all of this Lego. And you have certain personality types. There are things about you that some people are drawn to you and some people are not. Some people are repelled. And if we would be okay with that, if we could find peace with that, we would understand that you have a message for someone and someone is out there ready and waiting to hear it. And you need to show up to serve those people that are going to connect with you and not the other accounting company down the road. The best example I can give is coaches. So we talk about coaches. There's a coach turning up on every street corner, if not 2 or 3 or 4. Different kinds of coaches, different models of coaching. When you say coaching, sometimes even that word can cause people to roll their eyes. It's actually got a bit of a negative connotation, which is unfortunate because I've worked with a coach for 6 years and it's been transformative. But I don't work with a coach as much as I work with the person that I'm drawn to. So you can have in a networking room 10 coaches, or more specifically to this example, on social media, 10 coaches. But if they're delivering content and they're showing some of their hobbies, some of what they do, some of the things, their values, what they're aligned with, who they are, and we're actually really getting to see them as a person, that's when they find their niche. And you bet that there is enough people in this world for every coach that is out there because one coach isn't going to be able to serve everyone, right? And they're going to show up differently. They're going to provide different value. I've worked with multiple coaches and they've all had very different offerings or say something similar, but in a different way that I receive it. And so that's why it matters. Because you're going to say something and you're going to speak to someone that feels that draw to you, and that's going to impact them. That's going to help.
Thank you. What are some examples of types of content that small business owners should be creating for their business?
There are so many examples, it's not even funny. And we actually lean into AI to help with that and teach other businesses how to lean into some AI tools to help. In fact, one of the things that we first do with folks when we're talking to people, if they're interested or if they just need help, we give a 30-minute free strategy session, totally free, no strings attached. It's just an opportunity to try this on. And some people don't even like, what is content creation? What does this even look like, right? But we come up with like a 30-day calendar to take a look at all the different kinds of things that you can post. So you can do everything from a day in the life. I've done a video on making my smoothie in the morning and what is in it. And that connects with people that like to eat and live green and have that lifestyle. I've done videos of me going to pickleball or playing volleyball. Because there's interest there, and suddenly people out there is like, well, I like volleyball. I didn't know Jessie played volleyball. Suddenly I know her a little bit better. I like that. She plays volleyball. I have something to talk to her about. Random, right? So what I like to do is even talk about get to know your team. There's an idea, right? And what are some of the things that your team likes? Setting up a camera and just doing a time lapse on a team lunch or a team birthday or something. honestly, if you were to ask me, everything is content. But we obviously can't be taking video all day long, every day, of the week. We recommend batch producing and such. But you can be grabbing clips and things throughout your office and throughout your day-to-day if you start to integrate some of those systems and habits, which is something else we also teach and talk about. When I first started this business, I had a coach, a mentor. He walked into my office and said, "Hi, my name is Dan. Would you be willing to try this? Have you ever heard of Gary Vee?" At the time, I was an executive TV producer trying to get other people's shows up and going, very unsuccessfully, because it is really difficult to get a Canadian TV show up and going. And so I said, yes, I'm totally willing. He said, "You're going to have to document your life along the way." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" He's like, "When you go to an event, you're going to need to take pictures of people. You're going to take video. You're going to need to build the muscle of content creating, just like we build the muscle of social media, just like we build the muscle of any other systems and processes that we have in our life. Atomic habits, man. And you don't do it by thinking about it as this big, huge beast that, it's another thing I have to do. I need to be a video producer," because I've heard that too. How you input, sorry, that's not the word I'm looking for. How you implement systems into your life is fractionally, small bits and pieces at a time. So I would go to an event and I would make sure I had an establishing shot. So we were at a mixer at the TELUS World of Science. I would go and get some video of the TELUS World of Science. Do you think that I took that video every single time for the first couple of weeks that I did networking? Absolutely not. So when I was leaving, it was like, I forgot my establishing shot. I was getting it on the way out. But over time, I'm locking my car and pulling up my phone and I'm kind of taking it and it's done. It's all within the same motion of action, walking into a building. I click beep, beep, lock the car, take a couple steps, pull up my camera, 1, 2, 3, put it back in my purse, and away I go in. And I do it without even thinking because it's a habit, right? And so we work with businesses to try and integrate capturing content on a regular basis without it being overwhelming, without it being frustrating, so that you get to show who you are and attract that niche, those people that are sitting there just waiting to connect with you. They just don't know it yet.
Okay, let me ask you a weird question, but it's been on my mind a bit. I've heard from many people, and I myself have kind of drifted this way in somewhat recent weeks. I've heard terms I'd never heard before recently of like doom scrolling and things that like people say, well, I kind of trying to get away from social media because I find it's a big time suck or time waster or distraction. Is there opportunity to make video content and do something with it other than post it on social media? Like where else could a company use their content if they're kind of drifting away from social media?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, you can use video for a lot of different things. So you can use it in your own newsletter, for example, that you send out. So I would do probably shorter form, but then it's direct mail. You can use it on your website. So you can kind of create, your YouTube series on your website, but have it exist and be embedded in your website. It's fun to even do video as a part of sales and business development. I use an app called Vidyard. And it's you recording, talking, and sending that out to a person so that they're getting a video of you rather than an email and all of this email. There are some solutions there, and there are some solutions coming that I don't even know about yet because that's how fast this is all changing.
Okay.
But what I can say is that it's not going away. And even if people are talking about going off, which some will, I get it. And there's a lot of negative content on social platforms, and there's a lot of negativity in the world. I would say that in the direction that I would go is be the light.
Be the one that puts out positive content.
Yes. I'm going to get a little political here.
Please
If
do,
you
sure.
want to cut it out, you can.
Okay, we'll see. I'll leave that up to Brady.
My partner is watching a lot of what's happening in U.S. politics and how it affects our country, of course. And I am aware. Do not get me wrong. I'm aware, but I'm not immersed. And we were driving to an event, and he called my father and said, Orest, because that's my dad's name. A good Ukrainian name, so that deepens the political involvement. Orest, I can't even believe your daughter. She just wants to put her head in the sand and doesn't want to get involved. And they start this conversation about Trump. And they're giving me a hard time, razzing me. And I said in a moment where they had both stopped talking, well, it looks like you've both been trumped. And, what are you talking about? What do you mean? And I was like, well, because you're immersing in it, you're being emotionally affected by it, and you're talking about it. And that's exactly what he wants. He wants everybody, it's all sensationalized, and he wants everybody to talk about it. And I'm talking about it right now, so I guess I've been trumped too. But do you know what I mean? It's like there is a lot of other content to consume, and there are a lot of other things happening in the world that are amazing and that are good and that are of value. Where are we pointing our flashlight? And are you providing something positive for people to point their flashlight at? Be the light, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of logic in that. We were talking about something a little earlier that you said you were going to come back to. I don't remember what you called it. It was like the
know, like, and trust.
Yes. Dive into that for a minute.
Yeah, I touched on it, but I can dive into it a little bit more deeply. So it's all about that transcending the lens, and it's all about the getting to know you, and it's all about the niches. So it's kind of everything I've talked to built into one. So you meet someone at a networking event, you connect over something that you have in common. Maybe that's volleyball or something you do or your kids. And suddenly you feel like you know them a little bit better. And that's how you develop a relationship, right? And the more you talk to someone, the more you get to know them, the more you know, like, and trust them. That's sales. We know this. We've talked about this. Social media is just that. It's social. And when you talk about doomsday scrolling, or when you talk about even just scrolling in general, some of the things that we see that people have gotten away with is engagement, is the social aspect of it. But then it's also just being vulnerable and showing people who you are, what you're interested in, what makes you different, so that they can get to know you, so that they can like you, and so that they can trust you. And so, yeah, that's just going back to a lot of the things that I've already talked about with the micro content, with the documenting your journey, with who are you as a business day to day? What does it feel like? And that's the word, right? What do you feel like? Because how you feel or how you make people feel is what's going to draw them to you.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. I wanted to make sure I gave you time to go back to that. Now, I'm thinking of the same question, but maybe in two separate kind of contexts. One of the ideas that you had is a company could use video to help introduce the social media or other platforms to their team. Now, what if there's people on their team who are just like, please, I would rather do anything than put myself in front of a camera. But they're a good part of the team. How do you help someone? How do you help a teammate how do you coach them through that? Just, I want nothing to do with being in front of the camera. I'll be behind it, but I don't want to be in front of it. How do you help that?
I mean, it's tough because you need to honor boundaries, and some people are really private, and there's things that we talk about. Some people don't want to show their kids, and should I have a separate social media channel? And but when it comes to a team member, you really just need to honor and respect that. I think that maybe showcasing some other people that are a little bit more open to it to see, well, this is what it would look like. And if they're not open to video, then maybe a picture or maybe a group shot where it's more inclusive and it's not the focus or spotlight is on them, would be a few things that I would recommend. But when it comes down to it, I mean, ultimately it is a choice. It's their decision, unless it's within your hiring practice, systems, and process to say that as a part of this organization, we do document and Just like when you walk into an event these days, they will most often have a sign up at the front saying that you're given, by entering this room,
You give permission.
That's right. Yeah, I'm a big fan of autonomy. It's one of, our core values within our corporate culture. We have a lot of flexibility and autonomy. But I think it's really clear as a content creation company to our team members coming in, and we have to have that conversation because we're oftentimes documenting the documentation or the videography or the workshops and so we do have to have that conversation ahead of time that you will most likely be on camera, and there's release forms and things like that's giving that permission. But if you have somebody that is super opposed to it, and you're having the conversations or maybe showing other people doing it and what it's used for, or how you're doing it, or how it's helping serve others, and what the vision is behind it, right, and your why and some of that stuff that we talked about, and they're still resistant, then that's a choice, right? I don't know that there's too much more that you can do.
Okay, well, let's tweak the example then. Let's say that they aren't against it in principle, like they wanna help.
Mm-hmm.
They just can't get over the shyness.
Okay, that's a very different scenario. So the group stuff is what comes to mind, and it's just going to take kind of easing it in, right? And so when you're with other people engaging, then that's good. And then also the element of surprise. And so what I firmly believe is that the gold actually happens when people don't know the camera is running, right? And so as long as you have their permission and consent and everything is okay there might be an opportunity to, run some content where the camera's not in their face and you're not putting them on the spot. But let's use the example of a team lunch. For example, if there's, a phone or a camera or something that's set up on the fridge in the office kitchen or whatever, I'm not suggesting put in secret cams or anything like that, but where it's like more off the cuff rather than staged, because people are going to be more natural. When any videographer I've ever worked with, I do not give me a verbal countdown. Do not count like the 3, 2, 1, or okay, we're rolling, Jesse, really loud or whatever. They are very much told to give me a little hand motion or walk away or whatever that looks like, whatever that little signal is, because oftentimes I'll actually be done the interview and then I'll be like, okay, we're finished, and people will be like, what? I didn't realize we had started. Magic.
I guess another advantage of that approach too is I can imagine many people will say, well, okay, this sounds all great, but I don't have time for that. But if it's just sort of happening all the time, and you might just accidentally capture gold if you kind of forget that it's happening all the time. It's not really adding extra time into your day to try and record stuff. It's just naturally happening.
Content creation is an extra layer, and I will never ever be dishonest about that. It's part of the reason why we're a hybrid service company. So we do training where we teach people to do it themselves. And we had leaned into that full time for a while, but I love to listen, and client feedback is incredibly important. And upon interviewing about 50 of our most recent clients in the last year, we moved into done with you and done for you services, because it can be time consuming, especially the editing.
Yeah, the back end. And so that's not a joke. And we do need to do what we are good at. We need to shine bright in the areas that we have gifts and what our specialty is. There are things that you can do quick. For sure. Some of that off the cuff, behind the scenes, on the go footage, which is like more like documenting the journey, versus produced content, which is more like this show where you have the equipment, you have the setup. That takes longer to edit, it's longer form content, right? And so having a person on your team is really important if you're doing it, or definitely having some support. When we first started in social media, there was still a resistance to that.
most often, not every once in a while, most often, the person that we were coming in to train who did the social media was the receptionist. And it was, yeah, they do social media a couple hours a week, but otherwise they're on reception. Because people still didn't have an understanding, and this is just almost 10 years ago. This is just a decade. People still didn't have an understanding that this was a full-time gig. That social media and marketing and having an in-house marketing person to do that is a job. Like there's a lot to do. There's a lot to it, right? Now we've seen that most often there's a social media person in-house, and then it's teaching them or empowering them to be able to do the video training, our video training. So doing the videography and the editing. So adding that to the tasks, but that's time consuming, right? So I need to always be forthright with an organization that if they're doing some other things, you're adding something that is significant to their plate, right? So even if we've taught organizations to self-capture and to do video, we're now doing a lot of that editing and stuff, because what was happening is they were getting backlogged on content.
Is there a time? I'm just gonna make sure I asked my question correctly. Is there like an ideal time frame for a video clip, or length? Maybe I guess is the word I'm looking for. Like 30 seconds, 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Like, is there a certain thing that's like, this is like, statistically, this is like the best length to aim for your video clips, or take this big of a video and find this smaller version of it?
Yeah.
What's that magic?
I just did a presentation for a huge business summit. So the latest research is showing that under 90 seconds.
Okay.
90 seconds or less. That is for the short form content, the social media content, the capturing of attention. You less than 6 seconds to capture attention. Not this form. This is a long form content, right? This is very different. But promoting this, the podcast, I would do probably 60-second clips.
I think that's
or less.
I think that's what Braden does. But I was just curious.
Yeah.
Like, and I some of these like social media platforms I've never even been on. We have a TikTok channel for our podcast, but I've never even been on TikTok. I don't even know how to use it. I think I theoretically have an Instagram page, but I've never been on it. And so I'm not very social media savvy, but I know that a lot of them had at one point, if they don't still have, like very strict time limits or character limits that Twitter or now X used to have or whatever. So like, I know there's probably reasons why there were certain things that, and I just was like, but there's probably a magic sweet spot where you're like, yeah, so under 90 seconds is what you recommend.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I'm turning this interview around.
No worries. Please do.
So you're not on social media. You don't consider yourself social savvy. You're an accounting firm, but you have a studio set up and a person in-house doing this, creating content. Why?
I think for me, it kind of ties back into what you said a little earlier. I used to want to be, and sometimes I still do, wanted to be a university professor, mostly because I love teaching and I love mentoring and I love helping. And I enjoy the one-on-one conversations I have with clients, but I was hoping to find a way where I could reach more people in a more timely manner than that. And so for me, doing this podcast was, how can I take content that could probably help all of my clients and a lot of other people too, but get it out to them in a much faster, more efficient way than setting up 150 or 500 one-to-one meetings or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of the initial thing, is I feel like there's some good that I can do, and I feel like I could do it faster and more effectively if I could reach a bigger audience in a quicker time. I think that's why I started the podcast, was kind of that mindset.
And how has it evolved? What does it look like now?
I don't know. I'd have to get the stats on how we're doing with it. But I think the biggest thing that's changed, if nothing else, is me. Like I kind of alluded to earlier, when we first started this, I didn't even want a video. I just want an audio podcast, because then I don't have to worry about looking stupid. I don't have to worry about if I got a dumb look on my face. I don't have to worry about if my hair's all done or if my weird like hand gestures and stuff. I'm just like, none of that matters because nobody can see me, and I'm okay with that. Let's do audio. And then when I hired Braden's like, well, if you really want to do this good, we're going to need video. And I'm like, needs a camera. I don't think I like that idea. It took me a long time to warm up to it, but I think that's one of the biggest changes I've seen is that myself has evolved. I don't know if our viewership changes too much or not. I don't know, but I've changed.
And what has doing this podcast done for you? You know, what has it done for your business? You're still doing it. You're keeping going or whatever, if you will. You continue to do it. So obviously you've seen a positive benefit from it.
That's the weird part. I don't know that I have seen any direct like, oh, well, you gained these 8 clients because they saw you on the podcast, or you retained these 8 clients because they like the podcast and they want to follow it. We've gotten some good feedback from people who watch it, but I don't think there's anyone who's like, man, if you weren't doing the podcast, I don't know if I would have been a client, or I don't know if I would have found you. And sometimes I have this like internal battle. I'm like, can I afford to like keep doing the podcast? Because I don't know that it generates any direct or even indirect income. But that's when I had to change my outlook, and it's not really about the income, at least not right now. It's just about how can I grow as a person, and how can I continue to create content that may eventually reach more people. And I keep getting reassured by people who say, some of the most popular podcasts or YouTube channels in the world did 4, 5, 6, 7 seasons before people actually noticed them, and then they went viral later. But if they had stopped when they weren't super popular yet, like who knows if they ever would have gotten where they wanted to go. So for me, this is like I can probably give this a long haul, and just we'll help who we help. But I don't, yeah.
How many episodes have you done?
Brayden, I wish you were behind the camera because I could really use this information. This is our 2nd season. Our 1st season had, I want to say, 8 or 9 episodes, and then we're, I think, about 8 or 9 episodes into the 2nd season. So we'll call this about 18 of them.
Okay. I bet you that there's been a really good relationship that's been established with each of the people that you have had on your show, getting to know them a lot better. That's
been really cool. And it's been interesting too, because again, like sometimes they're as or more nervous than me. I mean, sometimes we have people like you, you're like, yeah, I've been doing this 100 times. This doesn't bother me. But sometimes it's like, podcast? I've never been on a podcast. I don't like the camera. And we're like, and I remember when we were in our old studio last season, and I was having a podcast episode with this lady who was super smart and had so much to give, but she could not get past her nerves. And I finally, like halfway through recording, I just did this, signaling that they would have to edit this. And I just like, okay, let's have a conversation for a second off camera. How are you doing? Do you remember why you're here? Do you remember what we're trying to accomplish?
Right.
How can I help?
Yeah.
And so it was me trying to help calm her down, which was interesting because I also was quite like nervous, but I'm like, I'm slightly less nervous than her. So then I can like help talk her down off the cliff, and we can kind of get each other through the nerves and stuff. So there's definitely been some cool experiences like that where I've built some good relationships because of doing the podcast, maybe having nothing to do with the content itself, just the level of trust that comes, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. It's an opportunity for you to, again, be that mentor to anybody in the seat, that you're providing exposure for them and for their story, and that's also serving.
Yeah. You reminded me just now of one other thing, maybe a part answer to your question too. Last guest we had on, he's known me for a little while, and he's seen some changes and growth in me. And he's like, I have to tell you, it's like, I don't know most any accounting firm that does a podcast. And he's like, I just, you would think of a typical accountant as being pretty like I can't remember the word I'm looking
Stuffy?
for. Well, no, just very, I can't think of my words right now, but when someone's like likes to be around people, introverted, right?
Okay.
So someone like very internal, introverted, nerdy, staring at spreadsheets, don't like having a social life, like that kind of like stereotype. Right. And they're like, so you doing a podcast kind of gives hope. And I don't know if this was wording or not. This is what I took away though. He's like, if an accountant can do a podcast like what you're doing, he's like, I think there's hope for like any person that feels like a complete nerd or geek out there. Because if we can force ourselves to like get comfortable doing that kind of thing, there's probably hope for anyone. And so I've never really thought of it that way. But then maybe if people are kind of in industries or professions that are typically thought of as very boring or not much of a personality or very outside the box if you were to do something like that, and then we do it anyways, we like push through it and force ourselves to do it, and it in a weird way it kind of gives some people hope
and permission to do the same. Right? Video does something that blogs, books, like things cannot do, and it's really you captured, embodied, us, everyone, right? And so there's power in that. And that's what that just goes right to back to the very beginning. Yes, you can reach thousands, but you can reach thousands with tone and personality and genuineness and authenticity, because it's capturing you, your gestures, all of the things that you talked about that you were afraid about being on camera are the essence of us. And those things are captured through the lens, not the pen as much, right? I mean, the pen, you can write definitely, and you can imagine into worlds, but video is the actual depiction of how you present in the world. So if you own a business, I have trouble understanding, probably because I've been immersed in it and probably because I know we can make it fun and easy. I don't understand how somebody would not want to harness that.
Yeah.
And even if they didn't want to, because of all of their fears, that they wouldn't look to kind of getting some help to pushing through that, to conquering that, because of its power, right?
Well, and not only that, but I mean, it doesn't have to be this. It could be a fear of anything. If a fear of something is going to stop you from doing something worthwhile, it's probably a really good reason to do it anyways.
Yeah.
Like that, just to conquer the fears.
I would agree.
And I have no regrets. No, I wish I had done. So
skydiving. Yeah, I know. You're talking.
It's not too late.
Yeah.
It's not too late.
Speaking to my soul. I'm gonna wait until my daughter's old enough so that we can jump out of a plane together. And so if anything bad happens, it'll just happen to both of us.
my father's wanted to skydive for as long as I can remember, and he's never done it. And he's about 10 years ago, he told me, he's like, Corey, your mom's finally given me permission to skydive. I was like, really? Yeah. She says when I'm about 85 and I'm going to die any day anyways, then she doesn't mind if it's on an airplane. I was like, okay, that was kind of a weird permission, but all right. So anyways, as we wrap up today, what do you hope people have learned or take away from this podcast episode? If you don't remember anything else from what we've said today, these 1 or 2 or 3 things is the sweet spot. That's the key take home stuff. What would you say?
Yeah, I would say that you have something to share. We all do. We have something to share. We have gifts, and you're here talking to people about what they do. But a part of that is getting to know you better as well, so that you can share your gift, which is in around managing their business and having their business run more efficiently, and the numbers and things like that. And so I guess if an accountant can do it, you can too.
No, that's the key takeaway. If Corey can do it, then there's hope for anyone.
Yes. But yeah, it's really, truly, there are people just waiting to connect with you on the other side of the lens, on the other side of content, on the other side of value that you bring to this world. And whether you think that there is or not, there is 100%. And so let that be what motivates you to show up for your own business, to show up for yourself, because this is a special, powerful tool that you can be taking advantage of. And I love to see that. I mean, it's really amazing when we get to see our clients' content come out and they're creating things because we've gifted that to them. Mm-hmm. We've gifted them the power to do it, or we're doing it with them, and then to watch the engagement that they get from it, and the interaction and connection. I think that's a basic need. We're all looking to connect. This is a really, really great way to.
That's wonderful. And you can tell when you talk about it that you love it and you're passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm thinking of that quote from, and then I say that, I'm like, it's one of two people. Like, it's either Walt Disney or Steve Jobs. I can't remember which, but it says something effective, do something you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
I think it was Steve.
Okay. I was thinking Steve, but I have Walt Disney on the brain a lot. So I was like,
Yeah.
it could be the other one too.
We
Anyways.
could be both wrong. Who knows? But yes, I've heard that. And I'm lucky. I really, really am. We get to go to sleep on Sunday. I was just having a team meeting. We have all of our internal meetings on Monday, and everybody that shows up, the first thing we do is we do a round of wins, a personal win and a professional win. And yeah, one of my team members expressed that a big professional win was that on Sunday night when she goes to sleep, she doesn't have dread about the week to come, that she's actually so excited about Monday and sharing ideas. And I saw this over the weekend, or I finished that edit, or, and then the rest of the team chimed in and it was like, me too, me too, me too, me too. And that is pretty awesome to be able to say that, I'm doing what I love, and I have loved this since I was a child. And then sharing that with other businesses, and kind of taking that pain away of complication and frustration and hardship. So I consider myself super, super lucky. That's a gift.
Thank you. Jesse, how do people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about how to get your services or how to have you help them? How do they get in touch with you?
On social media.
Shocker.
Oh, no. I mean, every which way. So it's Modern Muse Media. That's MUSE, not news. Some people think I say news. It's not news. It's Muse. Now you know why. Xanadu. Watch the movie or don't. You'll laugh, I'm sure. And so, our website, modernmusemedia.ca, our social channels, Modern Muse Media. And then I have my own personal brand as a speaker and an author, and I'm Ms. Jessie Muse. So that's how they can find me personally, is Ms. MS Jessie Muse.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us today on the podcast. It's been a pleasure to have you back for the second time. And
Shh,
dare I
tell anyone.
dare I say, I think this one was even better than the first.
Yes. Yeah, it was awesome. Thank you for having me, and thank you for what you're doing. This is awesome. I believe in it. But you light up, and I love that people have seen how you've shifted and changed because of it, because I think it's a really, really great experience. It's a chance to connect with other people more deeply, and that's what we all want.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a good day.
You've been listening to the Business Speak podcast featuring Mr. Chill. Be sure to subscribe and add us to your podcast library to ensure you never miss an episode. We love hearing from our listeners. If you have a topic or question you'd like us to discuss, would like to be a guest on our show, or would otherwise like to get in touch with us, please visit our website at businessspeak.ca. Thanks for listening to Business Speak, the language of business simplified.